We're on the road again. Follow us as we travel around the northeastern parts of the wheat belt area of Western Australia. We meet some amazing people with interesting stories and have a look at a bit of the history of the region. We stay in some amazing campsites. We go from freezing our backsides off to sweating the same backsides off in the heat, then get sent packing as a wild storm approaches. We stumble across a private collection of artefacts and go to some amazing museums. And disaster strikes that almost finishes some of the group members' holidays before it starts. So come with us now as we ride the Wheat Belt Way. G'day folks, how you going? Welcome to this week's episode of Wheat Belt Way. We started this series last week in Tujay and Gamelling. If you didn't see that, then there'll be a link at the end of this video that will point you in that direction. This week we leave Gamelling and just go a little bit out of town. There's a historic homestead we're going to stop in and have a look at. It's got an interesting story. And we also stumble across a private collection in another town that we get invited to have a look at, and that was pretty interesting too. So let's not stand around here gas bagging and let's get into it. You know, I used to think that life was pretty primitive and hard back in the early settlers' days. Don't get me wrong, it was. But for them, it was just normal. Just like in 100 years from now, people are going to look back at us and think we were primitive. But places like this give us a real chance to see how life was 100 years ago. Slater Homestead was built by George Slater back in 1846. George and his missus had 12 kids here, no TV back then, and bred horses for the Indian Army. How many people's mothers had one of these?
Yeah, I think the whole world's mothers had.
Yeah, I think everybody's mothers had one of them. In the 1880s, when the goldfields started up to the east, this was one of the routes that the would-be miners took to get to the Southern Cross area. So George got a licence to run an inn, providing accommodation and food for the travellers and their horses. Over time the property fell into disrepair, but after the Gamelling Shire took it over, and with government and lottery funding, restoration work began in 2002. Today it's open for viewing on weekends, and also there is a little cafe for Devonshire teas and light lunches. Early version of a harp. Didn't know I could play a harp. Out the back is what's left of, well, actually, I don't really know. There wasn't a sign that I could see, but I'm thinking it might have been the kitchen that had a cellar, perhaps part of the inn. I'm sure back in George's day the gardens probably didn't look quite like this, but what they've done here really sets the place up. Peacocks. You can also book the place for functions like weddings, or you can even spend a night in one of the rooms that's available.
I don't know what school was like when you went to school, but when I went there they didn't really teach much about Australian history. Well, at least not that I can remember. I really wasn't much for school, so perhaps they did and I've just blocked it out. But it wasn't until I became a tour coach driver that I really sort of started looking into history and stories and things, and since then I've been able to experience it and touch it and all that sort of thing. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm experiencing history.
Dowerin is our next stop. It's a one-dog town. Actually, it's at least a two-dog town. This is Rusty. He stands on guard at the entrance to town saying g'day to all the passing traffic. He was designed in 2004 by the high school students here in town, and the inspiration came from a creek down here called Tin Dog Creek. As you enter town from the west, there's this creek here, and back in the gold rush days, the people would walk through here going to the gold fields, and this was a popular little campsite. And back then they had to carry everything with them on their back and that, so weight was an issue, food was scarce, so quite often they would bring tin food with them, and quite often that tin food was beef. Now people, when they had that, they thought it tasted like tin dog, so that's how this area got called Tin Dog Creek. They do say if you walk around here and have a look, you can still find bits of the old tin cans and things like that they used to have. Just an example, not real sure, but just standing where we were here filming, we found this little bit of tin here. Don't know if it's come from one of the tin cans or just a bit of other rubbish that was found, but there you go. Get out and have a bit of a walk around and have a look. There are a couple of walks around through this bush, and you won't have to look very hard to find some fantastic native flora and fauna and wildlife throughout the trail. The second top dog in town is Rosie. She got here in about 2021. Follow her paw to find the community centre. While travellers passed through the area, going to other places like the goldfields, it wasn't until 1895 before the town came into existence. In 1806 the railway came to town. In 1912 the road board was formed, and in 1907 the town was gazetted. In 1936 there was about 1,500 people lived around the town. And like a lot of places that we're going to visit on this trip, with the mechanisation of the farming industry, people lost their jobs, so they moved away. Today there's only about 436 people living around the town, and I reckon since I got the cameras out and started trying to film this, most of them have now been driving down the street and having a look. These days, Dowerin is well known for the Dowerin Field Days. It's like the Royal Show for the country, where all the truck and tractor sellers and the farm machinery manufacturers come to town to try and sell their products to the farmers in time for the next planting season. And a lot of city people come out for the day to get a feel of life on the land. We're here in the town of Wyalkatchem. It's got a population of a little over 500 people and one dog. The area was explored in 1864 and wasn't until about 1904 before the first settlers came out here. But 4 years after that, before the town was actually gazetted. Going to read this because I'm having trouble remembering it. At the entrance of the town is the historical grain elevators. Insert photo. Which marks the region's claim to fame as the cradle of bulk handling, being the very first place where bulk wheat was collected in Western Australia. As far as what to do, well, there is the CBH Agricultural Museum, which has some early farming equipment. The old school, well, as it says, it's an old school, with a bit of a museum added onto it. You will need to ring to make an appointment. Wildflowers are a pretty big thing out here, and strangely enough, on the Shire website, they list the cemetery as an attraction. Well, I guess some people might find that sort of thing interesting. Alright, talk about, I guess, country hospitality. Just sitting there shooting that last scene we just saw, and there's a bench out front of this shop here, and we're having a look through a window as we're walking past. It's got a lot of old stuff in it, and the lady inside there came out and asked if we wanted to come in and have a look. So they've got this magnificent collection of all bottles, there's some motorbikes in there, there's toys and all sorts of stuff in that shop. This video will follow, and they're not open to the public, they're not open by appointment, but if they see you looking through the window and you look like you might be a safe enough person, they might invite you in. But if you ever get a chance to go in and have a look, it's pretty good. Get in there and have a look. This is Koorda. We're really starting to get out towards the outback now. It's only a small town, 413 or so people. Only has basic facilities pretty much just for the locals, but it does still have a drive-in movie. How great's that? Zoom in, you stay there, zoom in so that I'm quite close, but you should be able to bring that in closer. Just quickly, like all the area we've been going through, as we all know, because it's the wheat belt trip, so lots of wheat and crops all growing around here. See these blue cars down here? This is loaded with, I'm assuming, last year's crop of wheat, because this year's crop is still growing. So all of that will get shipped out shortly and removed to get in time to be able to get the new crop that's coming in off the paddocks. A name that comes up quite a bit in West Australian history is an explorer named John Septimus Roe. There's a statue of John in one of the main streets of Perth. He eventually became the state's head surveyor general. He came out here in 1836 and had a look around. By 1860s, a few pastoral homesteads were set up in a few favourite places. Generally, a settler would be granted free homestead blocks of 160 acres, plus a conditional purchase block to make a total of 1,000 acres. The town itself appeared here around 1917, around the railway work camps that were here to service the railway line that was on the way here. There are a couple of things in town that might interest you. The Koorda Museum in the Old Town Hospital and a privately owned caravan military museum. When you're getting out this far and there's not too many travellers, a lot of places are only open by appointment, like the museum here, so you will need to ring before you get here. As the day is getting on, we're heading off to our first free camp for the trip, which is not very far from here. Well, how would you like to be eating that tin dog? Yeah, not for me. Next week in the video we are camping in an abandoned town. Well, not quite abandoned. Then we also continue going east and check out a couple of interesting little stops, and then disaster strikes one of our travellers. So if you don't want to miss that, then hit the subscribe button. Like I said, give the video a thumbs up, and hit the bell next to the subscribe button too, because that'll let you know when I drop the next video. So till next time, happy travels.